Hi everyone and welcome to bioequestrian. Today we're going to talk about rewards and the reward system. Before we start the video though, I would like to add a little disclaimer. Remember that when rewarding your horses, you need to think about the timing. If the reward is not given right after the exercise, it is just pointless because the horse won't link it to the well-performed exercise. Moving on to the video, punishment or reward, what educational effects does it have on the horse and what does it teach it? Surely this question has crossed your mind before. Let us introduce you to our bioequestrian system. In our system, one of the first tools to use when working with horses are rewards. The whole entirety of rewards, in fact, and we will get to the treats at the very end of this video. Many things that would be strange for wild horses are completely normal for those born in today's breeding conditions. One of these things being the presence of humans in their lives. This is where we get to the point of this video. Admit it honestly, have you ever thought about why do we use these rewards? Most answer that after an exercise well done, but the question is why? After all, we don't reward our horses to enhance the quality of the exercise completed a minute ago. We'll come back to it at the end of this video. The first step to working with a horse is to find a reward system. This is a much more humane and pro-horse approach than building a punishment system. The ideal picture is a horse that is relaxed, attentive, listening, confident, and happy. Rewards are what we use to reinforce these qualities. However, it is important that as a result of receiving a reward, the horse becomes more relaxed and joyful. It is equally important that when expecting a reward for performing well, the horse should be attentive and obedient. That is, after receiving the reward, he is additionally relaxed and feels joyful. A nice picture comes out of this for us. Of course, we do not expect the horse to start wagging its tail or clapping its hooves for joy. You also need to pay a lot of attention to know how to observe these mood changes. Let's start this reward system with the very smallest ones. The first of these should be the presence of a kind person. Even if they're not in the same room as us, it still gives us inner peace. The same thing should be true for horses. The key here is precisely this kindness. If a horse is in the presence of its handler, is tense and nervous, it isn't great. Sometimes this is the result of previous experience and it simply takes time to regain trust. There will be more videos on this subject, but for the moment we will focus on rewards exactly. The first reward will be called I am here with you. Just like a herd member or a mother with a foal, the presence of a favorite human should be relaxing for the horse and at the same time increasing its confidence. There will be plenty of situations in which we will need this reward, so it is important that it works. With time, we will try to bring you closer to our exercises and ways to enhance the effectiveness of this reward. In the meantime, let's move on to when we need the relaxing action over simple presence. There are plenty of typical situations when we need such a reward. At the farrier, at the vet, during transport, when the horse is sick, etc. So a presence that relaxes, calms, and gives confidence will be needed in all situations in which the horse is given a new or a difficult task that requires him to focus. This may be crossing a bridge, jumping an obstacle, touching something scary, or simply returning to mental peace during a competition or a worse training. How to use this presence as a reward to accomplish good results. It is important not to expect anything, not to make demands, simply to be attentive. If the horse needs to reinforce this action, he will seek physical or eye contact on his own. He will ask with his whole body, hey, will you stay here with me for a while? When riding in the saddle, we also have a duty to simply be there for our horses. Usually we show our presence and support with a half-halt. You can find a separate video on that on our channel, before we give our horse any tasks. During a difficult exercise, for example a jump or pole work, it is important for the rider to be exactly above the horse's center of gravity, not to interfere and just to support the horse with their presence. Even though it seems to be easy, it really isn't. Sometimes we have to learn a lot to keep ourselves in the following stillness of active balance, above the horse's center of gravity, without adding any aids. Here we mean both the action of the hand, the calf, and the seat. An amazing equestrian feel is required to be able to use the I am here with you reward performed from the saddle while riding. So if you want to reward a horse in motion, for example in a nice canter, sit correctly over the center of gravity and just be there. This will add to the horse's relaxation and confidence that what he is doing right. You will see how much that quality of the lesson improves as a result of using something so subtle and how big of a difference it makes as a reward. Sometimes the horse asks you for further rewards by, for example, seeking physical contact. It is also often said to support the horse with your aids, to support the horse with your calves, to give the horse confidence, for example, in a jump. This is the reinforcement of our reward with physical contact or certain activity, which is another level of this reward. More about this activity can be found in our video on the first jumps. This brings us to the second reward, which is to pat or stroke the horse. Often it is the horse that seeks support and seeks to rub itself against the human. This is a very nice symptom. It is a way to show trust. Usually we use this word just as a reward after the task is completed, saying that it was good. The goal we want to achieve here is to increase confidence in the horse and his awareness of what we actually expect. After performing an exercise, doing something well, we thus assure the animal that it is done is acceptable to us and good. We can say that the rank of this reward depends on the amount of emotion we pour into it. Stroking can be very different, so we can level up a lot here. Most horses don't like patting, but there are some that are used to it being a high-ranking reward. And then this patting is also valuable. But that's not all. A pat is an amazing tool to increase relaxation and improve concentration. And in what way? Well, let's imagine such a situation when the horse's entire attention is directed to something disturbing. It could be some scary element, like a tractor in the field or a loose horse. The horse cannot easily return to mental stability at this point, even if it wants to. It is by nature a feeling animal and will take his human with him, or he expects that his human had also noticed this scary thing. His natural instincts do not allow him to pass by the subject indifferently, and then such a physical contact acts a bit like a way back to safe reality. Before you start fighting with your horse in such a situation, try simply stroking him and thus, with the help of a reward, help him return to his thoughts and safely continue and focus on the task. In the case of a nervous horse, such a preventative action with reward can do wonders. Usually, the "I am here with you" reward is enough, but in difficult situations, everyone requires a handshake or a hug. Rewards strengthen the horse's psyche and increase their self-esteem. You can also draw your horse's attention to a poorly relaxed muscle or to an increased demands of a particular exercise with a pat. Such a specific action will help them to increase concentration and improve control over their body. That way, the favorite human thus comes out as caring and wise member of this mini herd. Interestingly, the stroking also relaxes the human, which in result increases comfort for the entire horse-rider pair. This has also a whole lot of benefits. And here is our request. Let's use a lot of stroking. It greatly improves communication and riding quality. Let's move on to the scratching. Horses in herds scratch and bite each other regularly. If so, it must bring herd benefits, so it is a reward. How and when in this case? First of all, scratching can be a reward when it is combined with a reaction from the horse. Otherwise, it is as annoying as a fly bite. However, if we do it in a favorite spot with sensitivity and for more than 2 to 3 seconds, and the horse thinks about it, we'll get a clear response to our reward. Why do we need such an action then? The most important effect we will get here is the reset of the horse. A lot of disconnection from stress, a total separation of one task from the next, or an end to the state of tension that the horse was feeling. It will also cause the horse's attention to be focused on the scratching, which means on what his human is doing. It also gives us a response that is, at this point, usually the horse also wants to perform some act of kindness in our direction. This reward can be used as a clear signal that some stage of an exercise has been completed. It can be used to strengthen the relationship with the horse and help accept your presence as a member of the herd. Especially in the first stages of the horse's education, this is essential. It helps to set boundaries for these mutual kindness. It helps to set boundaries for these mutual acts of kindness. It also helps to give a clear signal about the job well done and the completion of some stage of it. For example, at a competition, it helps the horse to quickly recover and start resting. So it is useful to have such a reward not only at the end of riding, working from the ground, handling physiotherapy or shoeing. It will be very useful for dividing the work with your horse into its own parts. It will allow the horse to clearly distinguish the change of work, and thus training will become clearer and more logical for him. But note, we can after all scratch the horses and put some parts of our horse in order. But here, note that we can after all scratch the horse and put some parts of our horse in order. This already comes out as a kind of reprimand, and this should not be forgotten either. The mares often reprimand their foals in this way to encourage them to change positions, for example, a kind of nostalgic punishment. Next up, we've got the voice. Seemingly obvious and yet so underrated. We often forget that the voice is one of the basic riding aids. If so, one should distinguish well between its helping effect and that one of a reward and punishment. More often, however, we probably hear the voice as a reprimand, a punishment on riding arenas. We can hear, "What are you doing? Stop it," etc. Sometimes we hear "good boy," but usually already with other relaxing aids. We urge you to consider the voice as a self-performing reward. This is a very strong, precise, and clear action. A short "great" is not only a sign to the rider that he is riding well, but also to the horse that he is great. Another command can signify perfect completion of the task and move on to the further rewards. Voice as a reward can greatly increase confidence in the horse, enhance his enjoyment of the work, and increase his levels of attention. Everyone wants to be great. If a horse feels great, strong, and praised, the more it wants to work. Voice is an excellent tool because of its precision. Of course, tone and consistency are important. Next up, we've got the treats, one of the most effective rewards and almost the greatest reward for the horse. They let the horse know clearly that it has done something well, as expected, thus it reinforces the horse's confidence in the completion of tasks, also calming it down because the animal has no doubt that it has done something right. If we want to speed up the work and clear it of misunderstandings, we should use clear rewards. This will also increase the horse's involvement in the work and cause him pure joy, just like a child when it receives candy. We urge the use of a variety of treats that are good for the horse's health and for its teeth. Such a reward given even after a poor attempt at a new task will assure the horse that it is going in the right direction and will cause the next attempt to be a little bit better. The horse is sure to try even harder. So what can you deduce from that? Is that we should use treats during performing exercises and not after. An especially nice effect is brought by this reward when the horse makes the very first unsure attempt to perform the expected task and doesn't quite understand if this is what it's all about. Then a treat translates to the horse as, "Yes, that's what I meant." It is a guarantee that the horse will properly understand the command and thus greatly speed up the progress, while making it more enjoyable for both parties. It will come in very handy in many situations, from teaching basic grooming to every element of training. And yes, we use treats while riding. We much prefer the carrot method, literally, to the whip method. And the next reward is no punishment. It's strange that we talk about this with rewards, but it's often the case that the horse will be happy to do something. Sometimes he will bark for joy, other days he will shake his head. He also wants to let us know that he's happy, which is great. After all, we can't punish him for that. It can be that there is some kind of negative reaction at that moment. It's very important not to punish the horse after rewarding it. Our own horse sometimes stops after a verbal reward or stroking and thinks that he was so brilliant that he deserves a treat. Of course he gets it, not only because he wants it, but mainly because the reward cannot be followed by punishment. And for our proud rebellious hooligan, with an inflated sense of self-worth, and for all the other horses, the absence of the expected reward is a punishment. And this is probably the answer to the question, are there any punishments in our system of working with horses? Rather not, however, we are aware that lack of expected reward is a punishment. We use this tool consciously and deliberately. Another type of reprimand is the lack of attention. Not only human children will do a lot to get attention of a parent, horses too will come up with different ways to earn rewards. Therefore, indifference will result in the horse's chosen path not being repeated by the horse due to our lack of enthusiasm for this solution, and vice versa. But this will be discussed in the pro tip. What can be perceived as a super reward? Well, for example, abruptly ending the work after a successful exercise, moving on to scratching and making the horse comfortable. Alternatively, combining several activities into one sequence that assures the horse that in our eyes it is super. A quick summary of what we use these rewards for. Remember that first and foremost, to increase the confidence of the horse in the exercises performed, at the same time to reduce stress, reduce learning time, accelerate education, and increase the physical and cognitive capabilities of the horse. And of course, we want the horse not to lose his joy and commitment. Therefore, this is one of the most important aspects of taking care of a horse. Each of us likes to feel powerful, good at what we do, and appreciated. Let's make sure our horses feel that way in our company too. And now it's time for the drumroll please, pro tip. Today we decided to show you guys some typical examples of turning punishment into a reward and the other way around that we see every day. Padding while riding. If the horse relaxes, it is a reward. However, most horses do not like padding, so reward or rather a punishment. Usually it's a punishment rather than a reward. For a horse, music can be both a reward and a punishment. Everyone has their favorite songs at which they feel relaxed or their energy and cheerfulness increases. There are also some individuals who are distracted by music. Take it into account that at competitions, lessons, shows there will usually be music, and it is good to familiarize the horse with it and teach him to recognize it as something pleasant and not as background noise. Applying pressure in the standing position. This is more often observed as a punishment using natural methods, quote unquote, without getting into aspects of the horse's biomechanics. If the horse does not want to work in forward movement, we see backing off or quote unquote punishment while the horse is standing still. But is it still a punishment for a horse that has been desensitized to all possible forms of pressure, especially if he is standing and simply resting at the time? The worst thing is if it turns into indifference or learned helplessness. Backing up. Some people use it as punishment. In fact, this movement is associated with hurt. Some people use it as punishment. In fact, this movement is associated with hurt submission and sometimes helps to gain respect and obedience. The question, however, is whether the movement we want to later on perform as a part of training can be perceived by the horse as punishment. Intense shouting, waving hands, a violent reaction. Sometimes due to interspecies differences, it can be perceived by the horses as enthusiasm about their chosen solutions and considered as joy. It's pure misunderstanding, but quite often happens. Grooming. Sometimes it seems that many horses do not like grooming. This is not quite true. It just requires the rider to think about whether he actually wants to carry out this procedure right before the ride and in a way that makes the animal feel discomfort. Think of it as scratching. One single tiny treat at the end of the ride or after the ride. What kind of a reward is that, and what exactly are we rewarding? It's not a punishment either, because it's pleasant and the rider will be perceived as more pleasant by the horse. If the ride was poor for the horse and did not enhance his confidence, fitness, and satisfaction, then what does a treat after such a ride communicate? That the abuser is nice? Well, it isn't really the goal we are trying to reach here. Do you guys have any more common examples of such misunderstandings? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to give us a like if you like this video. And maybe you have some other types of words not covered here. Let us know down below. Bye guys!